Hi everyone, now that we've taken sort of a review of metric and imperial measures, we're now going to use those to figure out some different measurements. So we're going to start today with perimeter, and we know that perimeter is simply the distance around an object, which means that in order to find perimeter of any object, we just need to add up all of the sides. If we're talking about a circle though, we have a specific name for perimeter of a circle, and that's circumference. So circumference is the distance around a circle. And we have two different measurements that we tend to use for circles. Radius, which is through the center of our circle to the outside of the circle on any point. And diameter is all the way through the circle, still through the middle of the circle. So we know that diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. Diameter is twice as big as the radius, which is why we have two different formulas for circumference. We can either take pi, rounded is 3.14 times the diameter, or circumference is also equal to 2 pi r, 2 times 3.14 times the radius. So taking a look at some examples, we want to determine the perimeter of each figure, and we can do it in metric or imperial. So our first one, we have our parallelogram, and we're going to start by adding all of our sides. We know that opposite sides are equal, so we know that we're going to have 8 1/4 plus 5 1/2 plus 8 1/4 plus 5 1/2. Now, because we're working with parts of inches, which we have as fraction form in imperial, so we need to have a common denominator here. So we can leave our whole inches as they are. Those aren't going to change. And we know that we can change halves to quarters. So we're going to change all of these to quarters, changing our halves to 2/4 so that we have a common denominator. And then we can add all of our pieces together. So we're going to add our whole numbers. So we're going to have 1326. Then we're going to add up. We know they're going to stay quarters, but we're going to add up all our numerators. 1, 3, 4, 6. Now we're going to simplify this. So we see that we can take 4 of these 6 pieces and make them a whole one. So we're going to have 27, and we would have 2/4 left over, which just leaves us with a half. And we have to leave that as a fraction because we're talking about imperial measure. So the distance or perimeter around this object is 27.5 inches. For part B, we are given our diameter measure. So we're going to use our formula C equals pi d. And we're going to use our pi button in our calculator so that our answer is as precise as we can get. So we're going to leave pi as it is right now, and we're going to sub in our 8.4 for our diameter. So in our calculators, we're going to press pi times 8.4. And if we're not sure, if we haven't been told otherwise, we're going to round side measurements to 1 decimal place. So when we do that, we get 26.4 centimeters, And we always want to make sure we have our units on here. For part C, we have our triangle. Now, the problem here is that we don't know how big this side is here. So we have to think about a way to find that out. Well, we know 2 sides of a right angled triangle, which means that we can use Pythagorean theorem to find our third side. So we're going to use c squared equals 5 squared plus 12 squared. And we're going to figure out what we have here. So c squared, we have 25 plus 144, which gives us 169. We square root both sides, and we get that our hypotenuse, or side C, as we want to call it here, is 13 meters. So we now have all 3 of our sides. We're simply going to add those together. 12 plus 5 plus 13 means that we have 30 meters. So the distance around that triangle is 30 meters. Part B just tells us we have a circle with a radius of 4 inches. Right away we know that we're going to use C equals 2 pi r because we're given our radius. And again, subbing in our radius, we know we have 4. And we're going to put this into the calculator. 2 times pi, our pi button, times 4. And when we do that, we get 25.1. Now, we know that this is inches. So as soon as we see that we have an imperial measurement, we want to change that to fraction form. Again, only our metric measurements are going to stay in decimals. So we have 25 1/10 inches. And we can either put it as an IN or we can do it as our 25 1/10 inches. For part E, remember that it is the distance around an object. So we do have 3 sides here. So we have 12, we have 10, we have 12 on this side as well. Note we don't have the 4 side of our rectangle on the outside of the object. We, however, do have half of a circle. So we need to know what the circumference of half a circle is. Well, you say we don't have the radius or the diameter. We do actually have the diameter of our circle because we know that that's 10 millimeters as well. So we're going to sub in pi d, but because we only have half of that, we're going to divide that by 2. So subbing in our value for our diameter, we're going to have pi times 10 divided by 2. And we can do this all in our calculator in one step. What I would do is calculate what we have here first of all. So do our multiplication first. Pi times 10 divided by 2 equals. And then because they're all added up, we can add our 12, our 10, and our other 12. And we're going to round this to 1 decimal place. Means that we're going to get our 15.7 plus 37 means we're going to have 52.7 millimeters. And part F. Now we're going to figure out the perimeter of this composite figure. The problem is that we're missing a couple of the sides in here. So we have to calculate those sides. And I'm just going to make a little room here to do some calculations for that. So for this side in here, note that we have 42 all the way along here. Well, and sorry, we're going to do the inside one first. So the one in here, we have 42 all the way along here, and we have 17 here and 9 here. Well, this one in here has to be the difference between 42 and 26. So for that one in here, we're going to have 42 minus 17 minus 9. So when we take that away, we're going to get 16 meters. So our side in the middle here is going to be 16 meters. When we want to calculate this side in here, we have all the way across the top is 40. We know that this is 31, which means it only accounts for this little section here. We have to then add an extra 8 for this part of that side. So we're going to have 40 minus 31, but then we have to add that 8 back. So we're going to have 17 meters. So we now have all of our sides. We want to go one direction or the other around the object to make sure that we include all the sides. So 40 plus 17 plus 17 plus 16 plus 8 plus 9 plus 31 plus 42. And just to count up, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sides. We do have 8 numbers that are all added together, so we know we've included all of those sides. When we add up all of those numbers, we get 180 meters. So it's 180 meters if you were to walk directly around the outside of that object. Okay, so there's some questions to practice on your worksheet for today.